They were all the problem ones. I got it now.
Exactly. And I just want to thank everyone for, for coming. We had a great session this morning. Thank you for staying for the afternoon session. I want to thank the staff and the professional standards committee who put this all together. 2 announcements. We have Raleigh Regional Association of Realtors elections. Vote for your leadership, October 2nd through the 6th. If we have any candidates in the room, will you please stand? So this is your opportunity to vote for your leadership. And then secondly, an opportunity for all of you to participate. Committee applications go out October 10th. So if you're interested in serving on this committee, professional development, or any other committee, RRAR committees, please sign up, please sign up, please sign up, and then you will be notified around the first week of December if you've been appointed to the committee, and that's it.
We'll turn it back over to Craig.
Right. Madam President, thank you for your services. Or my condolences, I'm not sure. What's better. It's a tough job. All right, so this afternoon, this is a phenomenal panel. I can't wait to kind of open this up. We have Representative Ball, which thank you very much, Representative, for being here with us. We've got 2 green builders, developers here as well, and then we've got 2 folks that are in with companies that are really advancing progress in this green building industry. So, we were talking about solar PV today. That's kind of the sexy stuff because it's visible, but we're going to be talking a lot about energy efficiency as we work our way through the day and how important that is, and also about the evaluation process. And just so you all know, this is my home in 1895, Victorian in Melrose, Massachusetts, with some stats up here. So 1895 Victorian, it's got a hip roof, it's got a turret. That's the toughest building envelope to kind of get to the standards that we want them to get to. And we got a HERS score of 59 out of that, which was pretty good. It's pretty solid. It's on the Green Building Registry, which Meg works for, and it's also Pearl certified, which Heather will talk about as well. But one of the things that my wife and I found, it was a massive renovation. We went down to the studs, we moved the kitchen from one side of the building to the other, we took out 1 bath, we added 2 more. So it was a big, big renovation. It was 10 months of work on the home. But believe it or not, and there's a lot of different theories about this, but going the green way for us was actually more cost effective than doing it the traditional way. I'll give you one example of that. We used to be heated with natural gas. We didn't have any AC except for those ugly window units in an 1895 Victorian, which I just couldn't stand those when I drove down the street and see those sticking out the windows, So there was no way we were going to do this massive renovation without AC. We know the climate's getting hotter, we were going to do that, but we didn't have any ductwork either. So I asked the builder, what's it going to cost for a new natural gas system and a new AC system and ductwork? He said $45,000. I said, okay, well, what about this new technology that's now effective in the Northeast, even in cold climates like mine, even colder in Maine? They put in 125,000 heat pumps over the last 3 or 4 years. I said, what about heat pumps that do the heating and cooling? So rather than investing in one power plant for heating, another plant for cooling, I'm using one system. Right? Ductless mini splits, 4 mini splits because we didn't have to add any ductwork. So that was an easy solution. He said 25, came in at 24. I'm lucky that our investor-owned utilities also offer a $10,000 check. So I got a check for 10 grand for decarbonizing the home as well. So it was like 14,000 out of pocket rather than 45. That allowed me to invest in a better building envelope. We filled everything with closed cell spray foam, which is the best R value per inch. That probably cost me $7,000 more off from the insulation package we were originally looking at. But when you run all of the numbers, it was just a really smart investment for my wife and I to do. And, I can walk the walk as well as talk the talk. We did decarbonize the home. We went with mini splits. heated by electricity, used by electricity to 300% efficient. I'm sure one of these guys can talk more about that. Went with a heat pump hot water heater, which also has the benefits of dehumidifying a pretty wet basement with an old foundation in the air. And the tough one, my wife is a phenomenal cook. Well, you can see the evidence right here, right? It's pretty clear. But, you know, were we gonna move away from natural gas as a cooktop to the new technology in induction cooktops? So, you know, I've sold a bunch of homes with induction cooktops that decarbonize, so I have a whole bunch of videos of professional chefs that really love the technology, think it's far superior than natural gas. And for like the first time in 30 years, I actually won a domestic argument. I mean, it's almost incredible that I did that. And we went with induction, and we would never go back now. I mean, we have so much more control. It's so much more fun to cook on. It's really a cool technology. And, you know, it's safe. You can put your hand down right next to the pan, which on an electric coil or natural gas, you'd be burned. It's super safe because it works through some kind of magic magnetism thing that heats the food, and it's really super, I mean, it's superior to natural gas in terms of control. So just a lot of stuff for technology that's happening out there in the marketplace that's really cool. So congrats to Pearl certification, and this is on the Green Building Registry too. So if you look in Melrose, Massachusetts for 957 Main Street, you'll find that this stuff is uploaded into the Green Building Registry as well. All right, so Representative Ball, can we start with you? And I've got a few questions for you. You know, we're gonna go in groups of 3 here. It may be that the representative needs to leave a little bit early. So I'm gonna open up some questions from the audience, and then we'll go with the other 2 just to make sure your time is okay. But can you tell us a little bit about your district and your kind of legislative priorities, just to give a big picture of what you do?
Well, thank you, and thank you to all of you for inviting me here. You're sitting in my district, first of all. It runs from parts of West and Northwest Raleigh into Cary. And I am proud to be your representative, although you may not live here. I guess they're not anybody who's voting for this building, but this is my district. As far as my service, I have been elected to my 4th term. I've been in leadership all of those 4 terms because I thought that I could make most of a difference by being in leadership, and I've been grateful about that, and sometimes the pressure is a whole lot. But as far as those people who don't know about my district, it's pretty much existing homes. I live on a street right off of Wade Avenue, Canterbury Road, and that's all about tear downs. And tear downs, I know, are all across a lot of other parts of Wade County. And as far as new development, there is some in parts of my district. But I ran primarily because I believe that, and still do, that public schools are the key to all the things that North Carolina should want to be and has been known for in the past, as well as protecting our environment, protecting our vote, and so forth. Those things have been challenging. I could get into a little later, perhaps, Craig, some of the things that are in our budget as well as in our respective bills that threaten those things. But I'm delighted to be here, and if there's more you want to know, I'm glad to tell you.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to raise an awkward question.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because we got a legislator. We've got to put you on the line.
Put me on the spot. That's okay.
But you know, my state, Massachusetts, has been a leader in very aggressive building codes, and we have now, you know, the builders have had some pushbacks on that, but we've been surprised at how quickly they've been able to adapt to really aggressive building codes. We adopt the latest International Energy Conservation Code, but on top of that, we have a stretch code, which is designed to be 20% more efficient. 300 of our 351 communities in the Commonwealth have voluntarily adopted that. And Governor Baker this last year signed into law an option for a net zero energy stretch code, which 23 communities have voluntarily adopted, right? So when I talk about the stuff that I was doing on my house, I did that because I looked at my real estate crystal ball and I'm thinking, my 1895 Victorian has to compete. I couldn't help but notice when I was doing research for coming down to North Carolina, there was House Bill 488. Yeah, so, you know, that was my feeling as well, to be quite honest with you. So this was a bill that the legislature passed that pushed off any new building code until 2031, which I personally think, Representative, is egregious, given the fact that we've got to tackle these issues in this decade.
But let everybody know what the current building code is.
Yeah, is it IACC 2009?
2009.
Yeah,
But it
so,
makes the residential one, I'm an architect and
Yeah.
was been on the Energy Ad Hoc Committee writing the code, so
Yeah.
I know something about it.
yeah,
But even the residential code has been stunted
yes,
for years.
yeah. And then on top of
But they
that,
wanted to
my understanding is
only
Governor
increase it to
Cooper
2012.
tried to veto that,
Oh, he vetoed it, absolutely.
and then it was overridden, so now it's law. So I guess,
That's correct, it's now law.
so what was your stance on this?
I voted against it, and I voted to sustain his veto, because I thought it's bad legislation for so many reasons. Shall I just read you what he said in his veto message? Because I think it touches on all the important things. This bill stops important work to make home construction safer from disaster and more energy efficient, and ultimately will cost homeowners and renters more money. This bill also imperils North Carolina's ability to qualify for FEMA funds by freezing residential building code standards. Not only does the bill wipe out years of work to make homes safer and more affordable, it also violates the Constitution by rigging the way rules are made, and I think there may be some possible court action, or the seeking of court action or some things, but it's we did have a lot of people who voted for it. And if I might add, I'm gonna be a little bit partisan here, I hope that's okay. And also.
We want you to be honest, so.
Okay.
absolutely.
I have been in the General Assembly now 7 years, and this session has been the most partisan, the most, difficult for those of us who believe that North Carolina has a great history, but also could have a great future in so many areas. The legislation that we've been passing is not good, much of it for North Carolina, and this is one example of it. It is damaging to our environment. There are many other bills, we can talk about 600, we can talk about a lot of bills in the budget, that threatens, I think, North Carolina, both as far as the homeowners and those builders who want to build a sustainable home, but also it is going to prevent people from feeling like they really want to come to North Carolina. The companies from wanting to bring their existing staff to North Carolina and encourage people who are here. We've attracted a lot of new business, especially in Chatham County, but we'll watch carefully to see how those companies perhaps endorse a stronger position on the environment. I think my bio mentioned this. I have a pretty strong environmental record, and I was recognized last year for being the representative of the year. But let me also say, I'm not an expert. My focus has been a lot on public schools, but those things go so much together. You have to have a good public school system, you have to have an attractive market for people to come, find a home. I know that the inventory I hear is very, very short, and therefore we're talking about ways to incentivize builders to build something that is affordable, but also something that protects the environment if possible.
So looking for more carrots out there versus.
I would think so, yes.
Yeah, I love that. Just to follow that up, you know, we were talking a lot about sustainable home ownership, obviously, today, which I think is equal to successful home ownership. Are there any other bills that we should be aware of, net metering bills, or, you know, climate risk bills, insurance premium, anything that we should be aware of as an organization?
Well, some of those probably, that I'm not familiar with the details of. Bills are so complicated, you
Yeah.
really don't even know the impact of them until you really study it and then you see. And we have frequently, since I've been there, had to go and amend what we put in law because we found out after implementing it that it was the wrong thing to do. But I ask you to look at, House Bill 600. It's currently in front of the governor. It's a Regulatory Reform Act, and it does many damages to, North Carolina's environment. It rubber stamps the Mountain Valley Pipeline, Southgate Gas Pipeline. It violates civil rights law. It allows unpermitted animal composting. I tell you what that is if you don't know. Weaken stormwater protection. There's so many other things we've done to that in that regard. The Farm Act for one thing. And to me, that's one that if you want to have impact, tell the governor to veto it.
Yeah.
It's on his desk right now. I checked this morning to see what his decision was going to be. He is thinking about it, I think inclined to veto it, but as you have seen, we have not been able to sustain any of his vetoes. But he's making a statement with a veto. I don't know if you will this one, but he has with many others, that while we might not be able to sustain it, this is where North Carolina should be or should not be by virtue of his veto. So I ask you to look at that and reach out. There's 16 groups have sent a letter from 16 groups across the state to ask him to veto it.
So kind of the public comment period, you're getting that kind of feedback, yes?
No, there's actually a letter that 16 groups in North Carolina
yeah.
have sent to the governor asking him to veto it.
Gotcha. So, you know, you've got a Democrat that's governor, you've got a House and Senate that's clearly Republican, you know, there's a lot, you know, going on. I guess, you know, just as you look at North Carolina's future, you know, and governments here, and, you know, we see what's going on in the federal level, you know, people can't even talk to each other anymore. How do we get past that? What's the future? Help us understand, you know, is there any way out of this position that we're in?
Well, thank you for bringing that up. I ran for the General Assembly. I'm a mediator by profession, I think also by personality.
Yeah.
And that hasn't gotten me very far since I joined the General Assembly, especially when you're in a super minority. There's no incentive for people to work together when one side has the ability to veto anything that the governor puts forth as far as his veto. We need people who will recognize that there are people within their districts who may not agree with them, and we need to find common ground. That's what I ran on, but I've not been able, really, I filed a lot of bills with, and tried to have Republican primary sponsors with me, but sadly, because I'm not in the majority, those bills have not advanced. And I don't know how to get out of it, Craig. I think what we need to do is stop gerrymandering, first of all.
Yeah.
Because this is not just about whether or not the Democrats, and I'm a Democrat, whether or not the Democrats get a fair shake in their elections. It's about making sure that there's a representative that you can vote for that represents what you believe in. Right now, we have solidly Democratic districts, solidly Republican districts because of the drawing of districts, and just a few competitive ones. And that's not right. That's not right, because the people of North Carolina, at least in my district's probably, I mean, I didn't win every vote in my district, as you might imagine, but what I'm trying to do is represent all people. But that's just not right. North Carolina, while people are headed to the metropolitan areas, Wake County, Guilford County, Mecklenburg County, and so forth, the pockets around those counties, Franklin, where I grew up, Johnson, and so forth, those people are, I guess you would look at us, those people are much more interested in getting something done. I represent a more Democratic district, but I am comfortable, and in my first run, I was in a very competitive district. So I think we just need to learn to work together.
Yeah.
And it is happening nationally. We're gonna have a government shutdown, right?
Yeah.
I think we are.
Yeah.
And that's what that's all about. It's one side has power, or at least can wield over a certain amount of power, and the same thing is true in North Carolina. Was that a helpful answer?
Yeah, that's really helpful, absolutely. I wish there were an easier answer, but I think gerrymandering is part of the problem. We see it nationally, no question about it. Open it up for the audience. Why don't you, let's see if we can move the mic around. And hopefully, is this on? It's on. Mary Rachel, maybe a little on this. But if we can get it on mic, that would be great. And Amy, if you could run that mic around to questions, that would be fantastic.
And, so as I mentioned, I'm not a realtor, I'm an architect, I'm with a friend who's not a realtor. And I did serve on the ad hoc committee writing the new energy code. So we spent all of those months putting it together only to see that it failed. But what I would like to say, since this is a realtors seminar, is I was so encouraged to see finally the realtors making it part of their, I guess, charter, I don't know what it is, but are the realtors willing to go out there and advocate for the stricter energy codes? Or they kind of, because it was all, we all know, it was all pushed through by the Home Builders Association.
They've gotten almost everything they wanted.
They did get everything they wanted.
This session,
Yeah.
if I might jump in.
No, go for it.
And, it's gonna hurt North Carolina, absolutely. So, I don't know, realtors in this room, are people willing to say to the powers that be that we need to enforce,
Well, I was at
legislation?
the hearing, I spoke,
Okay,
and I'm a realtor,
Right.
yes. So I was
let's
there.
pass you the microphone.
Well, I mean,
The American Institute of Architects put together a coalition to try to fight it. Had a lot of different powerful organizations join us. I don't know if the realtors went in or not, but that would have been very helpful because it was the home builders who were pushing for the weaker codes.
it's true. I mean, everybody in that room was pretty much either a home builder, they came from all over the state, or they were, you know, the directors of different associations from all over the state. There was just one or two builders that stood up in favor of the code. And of course, one of the big their arguments is that it's gonna increase prices. So that dovetails to a question I wanna ask Craig, which is with all the new requirements in Massachusetts, what did it do to prices?
Yeah, so, I was looking, and Representative Boyd, you know more about this than I do, I was just doing research on this. So one of the studies that was put forth by the home builders was saying it was gonna be a $20,000 plus increase to home ownership. Then there was another study that I think came from one of our national labs that looked at an analysis from North Carolina that said, no, it's gonna be 4,000 to 5,000, and oh, by the way, that's 3,200 that's going in the builder's pocket for that additional money. How do we get the truth out of those kinds of,
Well, how do we get the truth out of something? I'm not quite sure about the answer to that, but, because on whatever issue you have, there are sides that want to push their particular agenda. I rely a lot on the nonpartisan groups
Yeah.
to do research and share it with me and others, about what's really projected to happen and what's already happened.
Right.
I wish I had an answer about that particular thing. As far as the increase in cost, you all are the experts, not me, as far as whether or not trying to have a building code that protects the homeowner, protects the sustainability, protects the future of our state is actually really going to impact on the cost of things. What do you all say? Do you agree? 20%?
Insurance rates.
Yeah, insurance rates going up, absolutely, no question about it. Losing the FEMA funding, I don't think people really understand how big that could be when we deal with a natural disaster. And the fact that you're not staying up to date with building codes. What we found, Jody, and this is actually Rocky Mountain Institute that did a pretty rigorous study, another third party, right? And I agree, the home builders might have had something, they had some skin in the game by putting out something that said it was gonna be 20,000 plus a year. So going with a third party may be the way to go. RMI did a study several years ago now that said to build to net zero standards, it was a 1% to 3% increase in cost for builders if they were looking at the best ways to be able to do this. But, the impact on property home ownership and utility bills at the other end of this was a quick payback for that kind of work, and it's just, You know, and on top of that, we have a climate crisis, right? And the built
I was
environment,
gonna mention that. I
Is
mean,
it
we can talk
critical?
about what's good today,
yeah,
but, increasingly, I think more and more people, especially our young people, are, really advocating their, I don't know if you wanna call it protesting, but, making sure that their voices are heard about, hey, I don't wanna live in a country or a
Yeah.
state or a community when, the climate crisis is really hitting them and so forth. So, to me, we're a little bit late, maybe a whole lot late, really, making some changes in what we do and how we do it.
So I would-
another question from way over there, be careful
Well, I
about the
think Jenny
feedback.
It's okay.
I just want to say that, and I have been on the Government Affairs Committee here. I served on the State Board of Realtors for a number of terms, but the reality is that the Realtor Association and the Home Builders Association have been in political lockstep for decades. And those of you in this room may not be involved in those leadership levels, but your association absolutely ducked on this issue, because the home builders cared a lot about it and the realtors sat out. And these things are done in your name. The realtors follow the lead of the homeowners association, and those of you that maybe serve on the state board now or somewhere else, if you want to contradict me, I welcome you to do that. But because the vast majority of realtors are not involved in leadership levels and it's hard to know what's going on, but these are the things that are being done in your name. Gerrymandering is another thing. And while I have the microphone, I'm just gonna give my pitch, because many of you know that gerrymandering has been my passion for a number of years.
You were in a lawsuit, weren't you?
I'm the named plaintiff in the gerrymandering lawsuits over the last number of years. But the Realtor Party talks about being the Realtor Party. We don't have a D and we don't have an R, and we're the Realtor Party. If that is true, why do we not support redistricting reform? Why do we not support, why don't we put our money and our efforts behind fair election activity so that the things that we're talking about here actually happen? We're a very powerful group. There's a lot of realtor money that goes into elections, but a very small number of people make those decisions.
Well, I'm so glad I brought this up. Wow, yeah, thank you.
Just real quickly.
Of course you can.
I can speak. You all can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Our speaker has indicated his, desire to step down from the speaker's office. There is a gentleman who is very interested in becoming speaker, who has been somewhat of a friend of some of the legislation that we've been talking about that tries to make sure we protect the environment. And there's a belief from some people I spoke to in preparation for this that he has been sitting back rather than coming forward and not letting some of these provisions go through, because he wants to be speaker. And whether that's indeed his rationale or not, I can't say. But we have been looking to him. John Bell's who I'm talking about. I think he'd make a great speaker, but I also know that he has been, according to some of our environmental experts on our side of the aisle, so to speak, which I really hate though. I think we all just sit next to somebody who's different from us. What do you all think? And have good conversations, but that maybe that's why some of these things have been pushed through that have been so damaging. That is because he has been unwilling to, because he's the majority leader of the Republicans, unwilling to go out and fight for it because he wants to be speaker. Now that's just what I heard.
Yeah, that sounds unfortunately familiar. One more question for the representative, and then if you have to take off, Representative Ball, you're welcome to do that. We love it. You stay though, you're up to it. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, my question is, well, what can we as realtors do after this to, I guess, help promote our voices and what's right for the people that we're serving, the consumers, the environment, what could we do? What action steps could we take to just be more involved in the community?
Well, individually, you can do some things, but I think, Becky Harper just made a good point. Your organization is one that people pay attention to. And if indeed, there's a strong contingent of people within the realtors groups that wants to speak out, my guess is maybe they're not sitting, some others are not sitting in these chairs because they don't necessarily endorse those ideas. I don't know. Are there reasons why there aren't, this room isn't full?
We felt pretty good about the attendance, actually. But, you know, in terms of.
No, well, my point, I
Yeah.
get it. My point was that, my guess is if you were to try to find, common ground, to use that term, within the realtors, you would find some people that are aligned more with the more conservative approach to things, and also deregulation in many areas, or regulation when we shouldn't need it, but, there are some organizations that you can be part of, but you all have a strong voice. The realtors have a strong voice, and so, become familiar with what the legislation really does, and, there's House Bill 600, if you are concerned about it, let the governor know, let the leadership within the General Assembly know that you share concerns about that bill. And I won't go through the details about all of it, because you can look it up.
Well, I'll take a stab at the answer to that question in terms of realtors. So, one of my mentors, as I was moving up through the ranks at RRAR to work on the initiatives that we've been working on, who's one of our staff members, our lobbyist in DC, sat me down for dinner, this was 2014, and said, Craig, you have to remember, we are a member-driven organization. The staff, you know, if you put a coalition together and talk to staff, you know, they have, you know, that gives them the opportunity to at least listen to another side of the argument. I think we have a set of people here that could create a coalition for this local association of realtors, you know. I think Ashley and Amy are good setup points for all of this, right? So I think, you know, being able to, you know, to talk to staff about what your concerns are is really the beginning point, and just making sure everybody understands we are a member-driven organization. That's where what pays all of the budgets, you know? And if there's a coalition, if there's a collective voice that feels strongly, passionately, you got Representative Ball here, you know, you can make a difference is what I have personally found. So with that, Representative, I just want to thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. If I move down to North Carolina, I'm moving to this district so I can vote for you.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and thank you all for the chance to be here with you. I wish we had more time for back and forth, because every day is a good day if I learn something that helps me become a better legislator, and I'm sure there are many thoughts here in this room that would help me do that. So thanks for the chance to be here.
Yes, thank you. So we'll turn the mic over to Jody and Randy. So Jody, you're a principal for RRAR, right? And a realtor. And RRAR is a net zero developer. Why don't we talk to you first, and I'm taking on to Randy from Build Sense, but can you tell us a little bit about what RRAR is doing? And I think I have some slides for you,
Yeah, I
perhaps.
think you do.
I'll try to follow you along.
I am first a realtor and was able to step into the role as the developer of RRAR when I came across this land. Okay, so I came across the parcel of land, and I was just, you know, pretty blown away by it, and said I really want to protect this property. You know, I could have easily listed it and sold it to the highest bidder, no problem, but I did not want to do that. So the question is that I asked myself, how do I protect this land? And so my first thing I wanted was it to be off the grid. That's what I really wanted, houses to be off the grid, and came to find out that you can't do that in the state of North Carolina. You know, houses are allowed to be off the grid, but neighborhoods are not allowed to be off the grid. So it's like, okay, well, that's off the table. And we went to net zero. And And
Can you define what a net zero energy building
yeah,
is?
a net zero energy, residential house is a house that generates as much energy as it uses. And if it's, negative net zero, then it's producing more energy than it actually uses. So RRAR is it's a 12 lot subdivision on 54 acres. It's in Orange County, 10 minutes west of Carborough off Orange Grove Road. So that's where it's located. And in RRAR, we're doing more to reduce our carbon footprint just with the houses. We're really working to reduce our carbon footprint with the whole neighborhood. So 56% of the neighborhood is being kept in open space, and actually all of that 56% is going into a dedicated easement so that it can never ever be built on. So it's basically a protected forest, with streams and wetlands, and it's really beautiful property. So when it started, Jamie Hager, sitting in the back, was really instrumental in helping me a lot with a couple of local architects and a builder to help me on this journey, because the building science wasn't my forte, right? I have an environmental background, but not the building science. So they really helped me in developing the standards for RRAR and then moving it forward. And one of the things that we're going to do once there's, the first house is going to be finished in November, which is really exciting. But one of the things that we are going to do at the end of this is we are going to have a front-facing dashboard for the neighborhood. Because when I research net zero energy neighborhoods across the country, and I believe if it's a net zero energy neighborhood, it is. And I believe that, but there's no information to show people that it's actually net zero. And I want to be able to show people that we actually are achieving or not achieving. It's all, an educational process for everybody. It's going to be a whole heck of a lot better than, not taking these steps. So I just wanted people to know that the data is going to be out there when we're done.
That's great. So if I move to North Carolina, can I buy a home in your development, and is it in the representative's district? So we're all works?
Not in the representative
Not in one
district.
I'm currently in, because we're in redistricting right now as we speak. I don't think we're gonna go into Orange County.
That's terrific. That's really helpful. I was trying to go through your slides. There's one of your homes right there. Yeah, looks fantastic. And that's net zero. How do you get to net zero?
The houses in RRAR are going to, at a minimum, be achieving the National Green Building standards, and then there's some additional standards for the neighborhood in terms of things like indoor air quality. And then, with the help of Southern Energy Management, they do the modeling for the home to figure out what size solar array you need to hit net zero.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Randy works for Build Sense, your principal there. Been doing National Green Building Standard certified buildings, custom builds, my understanding, for quite a while here in North Carolina. Tell us a little bit about what you do. Let me see if I can get to your slide deck. That's Build Sense right there, right?
I'm happy that most of your lunch plates have been cleared, because when I say I'm a builder, after that conversation, I'm afraid that I'm gonna get food scraps thrown on the table. And if I also share that I've been very involved in the Home Builders Association for many years, including leadership and past president, I guess that just makes it worse. But I will say that I'm from the Durham, Orange, and Chatham County. HBA is the one that I belong to and have joined, and we consider ourselves the cool HBA, and we, maybe that's a little arrogant, but I actually think it's true.
I like that, the cool HBA.
But I am 100% not aligned, and it's the reason I do not donate to the NAHB Built Back. I'm not aligned with the state and often the national organization. So there are, it shouldn't all be about the HBA, but there are pockets of builders in the HBA that are very much aligned for building better houses. So a little bit about our company. We're a design build company, and we build high performance homes for our clients. So I have a little cheat sheet here that I can't read without these. We believe that there's a better way to build buildings, including both in how you get there and what you get. We circulate around the design build, design loop, and that circulating around that loop about 1,000 times makes us better at both things. Two examples of the way we walk this talk. One is that we keep pace with current building science and carefully applying that knowledge. We've been designing and building high-performance homes since green building was fairly fringe and hippie. Don't get me wrong, I am extremely proud of my Santa Cruz, California hippie pedigree. But still, this experience makes it easier to correctly integrate high-performance systems. And two, and we talked about this a little bit already, we get our homework graded. We certify every new home that we build to the National Green Building Standard, and we have third-party verification of the performance of our homes. And Jamie's apparently fairly popular in this audience already, but I'm gonna keep pointing back there because Jamie leads the builder services at Southern Energy Management, and she's been responsible for rating our homes since before we probably can both remember. So, for some reason I have a lot more gray hair than Jamie, and that just seems unfair, but it's where we're at. So our proven process is listen, plan, design, build. We have an independent architecture firm and a licensed general contracting firm under the same roof with common ownership. We're essentially a one-stop shop for design build. And beyond our commitment to National Green Building Standard certification and our commitment to environmental stewardship, our next level is to build every home so that it is net zero energy or net zero ready. And I suppose I should end with, we're building science nerds, so our clients don't have to be.
That's great. Beautiful home too, that's just gorgeous. Inside and out, this is another thing, you know, green homes are ugly. That is far from ugly, that's pretty terrific right there. How, you know, we're talking about net zero, now you're throwing in net zero ready, high performance home, whatever that means, third party certified. Why do those things matter, I guess? Can you define high performance, or what is a net zero energy ready home so everybody knows? And why do we care about third party? You go ahead and start with passing on to Jody after that.
Fair enough, and Jody just nudged me to remind me to talk about cost. And one of the best ways that I know to talk about cost is we're pretty involved with Habitat for Humanity. We built a couple builder splits houses, and Habitat is still building new houses for somewhere between 130 and 150,000 bucks, and they are using a certification system called System Vision, and they really know the low-hanging fruit. Habitat is one of the biggest builders and developers in the world. They know the low-hanging fruit, and what they manage on every house is that they can heat and cool 1,200 square foot house for about 33 bucks a month. And so if there's ever a time you want to counter the idea that long-term sustainability or lower long-term costs is outrageously expensive, walk into a Habitat house.
So I am now gonna ask you a question about that, Randy, because at the hearing, amongst many other things that I said, if Habitat for Humanity can do it, you can do it. And the response from the builders was, they are subsidized, so do you wanna respond to that?
They're right. Of course they're subsidized. But the house I'm talking about is a house that we got together with our trade partners to build, to essentially donate for Habitat family.
To counter what they were
Right.
saying.
But of course they're subsidized. A lot of their labor is free, but the fact is that their price point is so much lower than market rate that it's still a viable and solid example.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I thought I might be preaching to the choir.
No,
Yeah, so,
thank you.
You know, in the in the classes that I get, I'm surprised I didn't hear it today, was a question I commonly get is, you know, this renewable energy stuff is great, Craig, but we all know that it wouldn't work without government subsidy, right? And I just, you know, I'll get that question from, you know, some people in the audience, and I just let them know, you know, there's, back in 1913, to get into the history of things, there was an intangible drilling cost credit given to the fossil fuel industry, right? Great thing. Federal government has invested in new technologies. And look, fossil fuels have gotten us to a place of great comfort. We wouldn't be where we are as a culture without them. So this intangible drilling cost credit, you know, $400,000 well, they get to take 75% off from what they are as a tax credit for the intangible drilling cost credit. And there's a tangible drilling cost credit, which is the other 25% they receive over the last, for the last 25%. All of the people that have been complaining about subsidies for renewables, where have they been for the last 11 decades that has been still in place as a tax credit for a very viable industry that has done very, very well for itself, you know? I mean, just that kind of stuff drives me crazy about incentives that are
I can try and tackle the earlier question.
Yeah.
Can I do that?
Go right ahead, yeah.
I'm going to try and answer that sort of wraps a couple of those things together. But when we think about doing a high performance net zero house, I see that there's basically three paths to get there. And one of them is to create a regular house that guzzles energy with impunity, and then install a giant clean energy generation system to generate all the power that house uses. And there's a second option, which is to do something like a passive house, which is pretty intense, and create a house that's, and I say this with affection, but essentially over the top on conservation, and it uses just a tiny, tiny bit of energy, and then install a very small photovoltaic array to generate what's left. And you get to net zero the same way, just like the energy guzzling house. But I'm going to argue that Mama Bear, in the middle, is the best option. And we follow a process of conserving first and generating second. So if you build a house that's really well made, hits all the low-hanging fruit, maybe hits a HER score, a home energy rating score that's in the low 40s, and then install, which means it's a little bit better than half than the 2006 code standard house, or uses a little bit less than half the energy of a 2006 code standard house. And then install a medium-sized photovoltaic array for clean energy generation to generate the energy that you need. So that covers a little bit about what a net zero house is. It covers a little bit about what a net zero ready house is.
Yep.
A net zero ready house is a house that has a HER score of about 43 or 42, and it is set up for a photovoltaic array. And it also, I guess, puts some context on what I think is the most efficient process to get to net zero. I'm sure Jody's got a bunch of like what a high performance house is, but I might start with, I might add two things. One of them is, we always think about energy when we talk about a high performance home, but that's a really important metric, but that's only part of it. Could be about resource conservation. I think Jody mentioned the context, and that could be anything from transportation or watershed protection or environmental protection. It could be about water conservation, water efficiency. It can be about, gosh, now I'm getting the list mixed up in my head, but let's see, what am I missing? Oh, indoor air quality and health, and then certainly durability and maintenance. If you're replacing stuff less frequently and it lasts for a long time, that in and of itself is sustainable, that you're not essentially throwing away materials and starting again. And the other thing I'd like to add is that what a high performance house is not. It's not bare bones, it's not camping in the woods, it's not uncomfortable. I made hippie jokes before, it's not a yurt. I've seen some pretty nice yurts, to be fair, but What they are is they can be luxurious, they can be comfortable, they're healthy, they don't have drafts. This is a different animal, and I so often I hear high performance or a greenhouse is somehow diametrically opposed to being a house that you absolutely love, and that's just not true.
Yeah, I would agree. One last question, Joe. We've got to get to Meg and Heather as well on this, and get plenty of questions out there for the audience as well, because I'm sure you have a ton of them. But as a realtor, right, knowing these high-performance features that are out there, there's probably some really cool ones, but what are some of the marketing messages, I guess, that you use as a realtor to help home buyers understand the benefits of this stuff?
Marketing messages are, we use things like, you know, living in a healthy home, you know, more energy efficient, trying to more evoke the emotions of the benefits of the property or of the features, rather than going into a lot of the technical details, which will go right over someone's head.
Yeah, I mean, that's the green designation. We talk about know the science, sell the benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And in terms of the third-party certifications, to answer that question.
Yeah.
You know, from my standpoint, you know, as a realtor and a marketer, you know, it really helps to showcase what the benefits are, you know, and what has been achieved with the house. You know, so, you know, I like to have, and I like to see the certification. So in RRAR, they're gonna be National Green Building Certified and Energy Star Certified. There is one of the houses that's gonna be going up, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. They just are starting to break ground. They're building a modular passive home with a company out of New Mexico called Be Public. And I was talking to Jamie, they're getting other certifications, but they're thinking about not getting the certification as a passive house because it's more expensive. So it doesn't really matter if you have that certification rather than just already having all the benefits.
Right.
But
Yeah, I mean, appraisers will recognize the certification. And I think we all know, you know, I've never had a conversation with a builder where they've said they build crappy homes. Never heard that, so I don't know how. But that third-party certification does put some value.
it does put value on it. And I want people to know that, so for the first house that will be done in RRAR in November, they did get a construction loan for that property, and I did have them submit the letter that Craig is talking about and the green appraisal addendum, and it made all the difference in the world, and we're extremely fortunate that appraisal landed on an appraiser's desk who's not green certified, but who's knowledgeable and who cares. And he went above and beyond to figure it out.
That is awesome.
It was
That's great.
really awesome, and it appraised.
That's outstanding. We'll hold questions off for the rest of the panel for just a second. We'll pass that down to Meg. Yes. Tell us a little bit about Earth Advantage and your work there in the Green Building Registry, Meg, if you would.
Yeah, great. That's a nice segue into this session. So the Green Building Registry is basically an aggregated database of building performance certifications. So this third-party documentation, the certifications, the energy ratings, renewable energy data in markets where it's available today. So this is operated by Earth Advantage, which is a nonprofit headquartered in Portland, Oregon. And the Green Building Registry was originally built in 2017 because the city of Portland, Oregon actually made it a mandate that any property being listed, any residential property being listed for sale had to get a U.S. Department of Energy's home energy score to provide this level of information to the marketplace, because they felt it was really a duty for buyers to have this insight about the property. You know, it goes beyond the inspection. It's all on existing properties. And some areas also required on newly constructed homes as well, because that provides a consistent means of benchmarking and comparing one home to another when this data is available in abundance in a marketplace. And it helps to gives an annual energy cost estimate, as well as provides information to a prospective buyer on a home that maybe is older and hasn't been updated. Their options and their pathway for making these energy improvements on those properties. So I joined the team a few years ago. I spent 11 years on the executive leadership team at a regional multiple listing service, where I was very involved starting in 2008 with what we call greening our MLS. So like, let's talk to builders. What are they building now? Like, how are our properties changing so that our real estate marketplace would have the right data fields to effectively market these properties out into the consumers that are looking for them. It was evident during that time that, you know, finding this data, you know, it not only is what goes into making a high performance home, high performance invisible, but also the data to this third party documentation was also extremely difficult to obtain. So that's really what we're solving with the Green Building Registry. We've partnered with, you know, at present 21 different active data partners contributing their building certification and energy rating data to the registry to make it available. If you want to go to the next slide, Craig. You know, open data is a key component on all of this. So we've collaborated with those that work in the building performance, you know, rating industries and builders. You know, fortunately in North Carolina, which we'll see in a moment, you know, a lot of builders have chosen to build more energy efficient properties and got them certified. So, you know, making that data available in the marketplace, having that third party documentation is critical for the lending and finance piece of it. And also it opens doors for green mortgage opportunities, but it has to get into the real estate listing for that to happen. And that largely doesn't happen throughout the country. So that's another initiative, what we're doing, helping MLSs get the right data fields in place to support this information, and then now provide them this data opportunity to help all of you, help your sellers and your buyers with understanding this information. So it's also required for the valuation process, right? So if it's not in the listing, an appraiser can't consider it in their valuation. So that's a critical piece to that as well. And then there is our institutional investors, which are looking to purchase like green mortgage-backed securities. So there's incentives for the lending and finance space to offer green mortgage products out in the industry, either for a high-performing home or to make add solar to your home or make energy improvements to the home, because there's a market demand for that as well, because there's you know, sustainable portfolios that are, you know, of value out in the marketplace. So it's kind of like the whole data ecosystem beyond just the individual, the specific real estate marketplace. So Craig, if you want to go to the next slide, we can. You know, each year the National Association of Realtors publishes a Realtors sustainability report. They do one for residential and one for commercial. And so I look at it every year to see if these metrics are changing. So 63% of agents feel that energy efficiency promotion and listings is valuable. And I have this big but, which I call the great disconnect. You know, 59% of them, though, don't even know if their MLS has data fields to support this information, and nearly half of them aren't using it. So how can we solve this problem, right? One of it is with data. So next slide, right? So this is a sort of a quick summary of the data available at the Green Building Registry. So this is a public-facing website. Anybody can go there, research. You can search by county. I pulled up Wake County here. You know, there's almost 48,000 properties in Wake County alone with this data available on it. And you can see all of the different certification types that we have available in the state of North Carolina today. So fortunately, you know, over the last 15 years or so, builders have chosen to build better homes and get those buildings, those homes certified. So they are now available to you through the Green Building Registry. So there's over 175,000 of them right now. Some have more than one certification on them, so you'll see the available records are closer to, you know, 250,000. But do you all know that you have this data available to you today in your CRS data tax and public record system? Okay, excellent, right. Great, so your MLS, the Triangle MLS, has partnered with us to bring this data into your real estate tools that you're using today as part of your business as an agent and as a member benefit to you all. So in CRS data, I apologize, it is super small, but go into the tool and look. On the left side is a screenshot. This particular property actually has 4 different certifications on it. So it's going to provide the details of that certification, when it was obtained, what score did it have, what version was used, because as building codes change, or might not so much in the future for a little bit, but the certification requirements change as well, so that it's always documenting better than code in the marketplace. So that's important information. But way down at the very bottom, which you'll have to get the magnifying glass to see, or go in and look. There's 3 important data fields in addition to the certification data. There's an annual energy cost estimate field. So we're talking about affordability in the marketplace right now, right? Prices are high, inventory is low, mortgage rates are high. We talked about different ways to conduct an appraisal on a property. So these annual energy cost estimates are based on the certification data. Most of them are going to be from HERS ratings, so HERS rated properties. So HERS is the largest group of data that's available in North Carolina today. So a majority of the properties are going to have this information available to you. So you're going to be able to use this and help how many of you work with buyers in the room? Okay, so you have this information now, so you can help them make a more informed decision about total cost of ownership, so that they can better take their own financial circumstances into place when they're deciding on which property maybe they want to put an offer in on. You have this now to be able to compare property to property. So the annual energy cost estimate there, as well as its source, we're all about transparency in data. So even with the certification data, we identify the source that it came from, so that people have the opportunity to go out and validate that. And then the last item on that list is a link to, we talked about the residential green and energy efficient addendum during the solar class today. We have a partnership with the Appraisal Institute to be able to pre-fill all the certification data on that addendum. So that is available via a URL there, and it's a URL because we keep track of the energy rate. So when Craig asked me, what's the energy rate? 10 cents. I'm like, oh, 10 cents, because I was looking at it earlier today. So we have all that information. So as the energy rates change, that annual energy cost estimate is also going to get updated. So it's nice, updated, fluid information. So encourage you all to check it out. A couple of things that are going to be coming down the pike with your MLS that will help you better use this information in your real estate business. We talked this morning a little bit, Craig mentioned RESO and the real estate data standard fields to best support this information. So I've been working with the MLS for probably more than 3 years on talking about improving their data set to data fields to support this information. So that is coming up for all of you, as well as the ability to auto-populate the data, this data from CRS into your listings. So you're not gonna have to go in and manually enter it, which will help make sure the marketplace is getting the most comprehensive information about this, and will help reduce any inaccuracies that we all know we can do typos, right? There's way too many HERS rated homes in just a general HERS field in a score, right? HERS 0 is a zero energy home, right? Which is likely not accurate. In my MLS days, we saw a lot of those. So some great stuff coming. Encourage you all to go check it out and make sure that Until you have those new data fields to support this information, there is like a building certifications field in your MLS, so you can like check it off in there. But be sure, as we talked about, marketing this is hugely important. You know that this data is available, and then talk about it in the public remarks to be able to tell the story of why it matters and why this property is different.
I mean, that's great. I thought GBR is that right there, right? When I teach the green designation class, people wonder, well, does this really matter? Well, take a look. There's what the numbers say, and that's not even all the data out there. You know, there's 50 shades of green, right? And you're catching some of the last 25 shades of green in there. It's just an incredible tool. And by the way, you click on those green dots when you get down really close, and the address pops up. And just saying for you green designated agents out there, wow, that's pretty powerful. That's a database to be built right there in terms of engagement. Great
Yeah,
stuff.
you can see, well, on the map, you can open up a list view as well. There's also like a neighborhood search, so if you do have a specific property you're researching, you can like search nearby in there to see if there's some other properties that have this information in the neighborhood as well. Knowing your market area is really important. But they also provide a link to the public-facing website within the green verification section in CRS data as well. So you'll be able to go back and forth easily between the two. But
Powerful stuff, powerful stuff. Heather, Pearl certification, you know I'm like your biggest fan. And the work that, there's Meg's information, by the way. But Pearl, unlike other green building standards that are out there, you know, LEED, National Green Building Standard, Passive House, Energy Star, definitely, primarily fit into the new construction world, right? Not saying that, you know, I've sold a 1875 home in Weston, Massachusetts that was LEED Platinum certified, so it's possible to do it, but that's not the regular use. And, you know, the numbers I hear is 75 to 80% of the homes that will be here in 2050 are here right now. The elephant in the room is the existing home and how we move that ball forward. I think you guys have done an incredible job of capturing that and making it visible. So, you know, what's Pearl's mission here? What's going on with Pearl? Give us a big picture out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's like the greatest frame up on the planet for you to talk about the data piece of it and then hand it over, because there's so much that I would just emphasize and repeat around the use of green MLS fields and everything else. When we talk about the visibility of these features in the homes, we have an aging housing stock. So where Pearl steps into the equation, it's a yes and in terms of resources, where your day-to-day business practice is not necessarily every home that you work with is considered a high-performing home. However, as our aging housing stock is renovated and upgraded and takes advantage of rebates that are coming down the pipe, there are high-performing features that are within the homes that you're already working with. And was anybody in the room at PropTech South last week? Okay, so a couple of hands. Right, so you guys heard me talk about this last week a little bit, and to reiterate where we started from with what Meg was talking about, agents already think that this is important. 63% of agents. It tracks perfectly with consumer surveys, because Zillow's consumer survey that they did in 23, 64% of consumers think that energy efficiency is very or extremely important in their home search, which is exactly the same level of people that think having a bathroom attached to their primary bedroom is important. So when we look at where this fits into the priority of our consumer, it's already there, and we are by and large playing catch up as an industry. We're getting the greenfields into the MLS. We're getting these data integrations that are absolutely wonderful so that agents can have that information at their disposal. But in the day-to-day of the way that you work with your listings, in the way that you talk to your clients, in the way that these things get represented in the MLS, this is where it's beholden on the agent population to sort it out, figure it out. It's not in your contracts, right? It's not in your purchase contracts or your listing agreements yet. So you're figuring this out on the fly. So number one, thank you for being in the room to educate yourself and get there. And two, where Pearl sits in the grand scheme of things is that we step in to help you so you don't have to do it all yourself,
Yeah, tell us about some of those tools. I mean,
Right.
they're incredible.
So the certification is part of it, the time of sale certification, and I know I had the opportunity at the table to talk to some of you guys one-on-one on that. So at the time that you're taking a listing, we can step in and certify the listing on your behalf, or if it's not really gonna get to the level of fully certified, we can help give you some visibility into the features within the home that you wanna highlight and have show up in those green fields in the MLS and in your remarks. This is a little bit of a screen grab of what we're looking at, but the turnkey marketing package that comes with the certification is just as important as the certification. You know, when we talk about being able to show this visibly in a way that the consumer can make decisions around it and the appraisers can properly value the features in the home. So the certification report is part of it. We also have tour cards for the features in the house so that as a buyer is moving through the home, they can actually visually see the features that are energy efficient. We show which green MLS fields you should be using, and we're gonna help you figure out how to write your remarks section, give you suggested social content, and also pre-fill out that appraisal addendum, same thing.
And you go down to the specific MLS that
Correct.
the listing agents are actually using.
Correct, yeah, we do ask you to specify which MLS you're part of at the time that you order the certification, so we can make good recommendations around that.
Yeah.
And we also do a letter to the buyer's agent, the lender, and the appraiser that you can forward through. We also have started helping agents figure out the language that they can insert into their purchase contract that requests having a competent appraiser who has been trained at valuing these types of home features. So, trying to look at it from a holistic standpoint. Now, I am 20 years in the real estate industry. I am very new. I'm green to green.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
the way to put it? From that standpoint, but you know, understanding how to take these concepts and this information and bring it to use in your day-to-day business practice is what we're here to help with. So,
How long does the certification take?
well, there's a couple different ways we can actually do it. I mean, because we have different levels of certification, we've actually created a way for agents to self-serve and virtually provide the information on behalf of their clients. So an agent that is willing to do it could do a virtual certification themselves the same way that they go out and take the listing, take pictures of, you know, the appliances and the systems in the house and submit that back through to us. And we could do a virtual certification, which obviously the time on that could be very quickly handled. If we're gonna send somebody out to the house to do the data collection, that would probably take, you know, once we have someone in the home, probably 45 minutes to an hour, depending if we're doing a blower door test in addition to that. But very, very simple process. We kind of look at it through the same lens as like when you're preparing to take a listing and order professional photography ahead of time. Like we want to be part of that same sort of time frame of being able to step in and gather the information and get you all the information that you need so when you go live on the market.
So
You
with
have
an aging housing stock,
Yes.
what would the minimum, or an example of minimum features the house would need to have to really make getting the certification worth it?
So I would always suggest bringing us every listing that you're working with, and if we can't certify the house, we're not charging any dime. Let's put it that way. So if you're trying to assess what you have, like the transparency into the information about the houses, right? Aging housing stock, sometimes it's hard to tell how much work has been done to the house, but as a baseline to get to silver, if you don't have a proper HVAC upgrade and I think insulation, like without those two things, you're probably not gonna have enough points to get the house to silver, generally speaking, right? Just redoing windows and doors isn't gonna be enough, right? So.
Jody, yeah, if this helps, so, Monday, before I came down here, I had professional photographs taken of the new condo that I'm gonna bring on the market next week. And I had them take pictures of the insulation, the HVAC equipment, because I'm gonna send that to Pearl when I get home tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll get the certification back by Monday, we'll be putting it in the MLS on Wednesday, and I'll have these materials ready. I think it will certify, would be my guess, but I send that to them and they make the determination, you know? It's super, and I will say, the other, you know, as much as I love LEED, National Green Building Standard, Passive House, Energy Star, I love them all, none of them have developed tools for listing agents to bring this stuff to the marketplace, to make sure they're properly valued, and make sure the marketing really hits the mark on this stuff. I mean, it's awesome.
And I mean, it's really, when we were talking specifically about the listing process here, we really want to be a resource to agents across the entire ecosystem of your business. So I think we have, I mean, the appraisal done, we can
Yeah.
skip past that one.
Yeah.
So Green Door is our consumer-facing app. So when we think about, we all don't have a ton of listings right now, right? So we're working with homeowners that are staying in their homes for on average like 13, 14 years now, where before it used to be 7 or 8. So when you're talking about being a resource to your clients over the whole homeownership life cycle, you can point them in the direction of using Green Door, free tool for consumers. They can go and start uploading some of this types of information on their home, get a feel for where they sit currently with their energy efficiency, and it will give suggestions. They could do a home improvement plan in there, will give suggestions on things that they can do. There's also a climate check integration in there, so you could even look at some of the resilience suggestions there. But it's trying to provide a holistic support network for agents as you're working on this in your business. And if you go through to the next one, we built an agent network, and I know I've talked to a few of you guys about that. Free network. It's there to be a resource. We have a network portal that when you fill out the join the network form that's at the far end of that QR code, you get invited in there. The great thing about that is that you can network with other agents that are doing the same type of business you are. You have access to Pearl's leadership and support as you're facing these things in your day-to-day business. But we also have marketing materials and training and updated information that shows up in there too. So absolutely no cost to join. It's there to be a resource. And then when we talk beyond the homeownership life cycle and the listing portion of things, when you're working with buyers who are just getting in a home, they're just getting their feet under them, we're looking at the next steps is how can we be helpful to a buyer's agent, either pre-contract or post-close, of helping your consumer understand what have they bought with this house. So I think we're really moving beyond this habit that we've gotten in the industry as listing agents of sort of signing the as-is addendum and counting the number of appliances and calling it a day, right? What consumers are looking for in their home search journey is a little bit more sophisticated than that. And as listing agents, we now have a big opportunity to be a bit more transparent into what's in that housing stock, what exactly are our consumers going to face when they sell this house or when they buy this house, and how can we really help provide good advice to them.
Need all 5 of you should put your hands on that mic and do a big mic drop, because I'm saying boom right here. That's some huge stuff. Yeah, questions, go ahead, yep.
Sorry, you can probably hear me. Interesting that consumers can put their own data in, and I'm just wondering if you could speak to the reliability of that. It's sort of like Zillow versus the MLS, which has some accuracy controls, and that seems concerning to me.
So in terms of the consumer being able to input their own information, right? The Green Door is a tool that sits in the homeownership journey, right? When we get to the point, so they can take pictures of their appliances. We actually have a homeowner division with a concierge side that will help guide consumers through this. We'll work with them, can even hop on the phone with them to help them through it. But when we get to the point of doing a certification, then we're going to want to validate that information via either the agent that's going in and providing that data, or the third-party data collector that we're sending out to the house. And I just want to call out too, like the use of photography, like for that portion of the professionals walking into the house already and being able to utilize them to help with that. That's actually a great call out, and one of the things, like I love that use. I mentioned that before, but does that help?
So I used Green Door for my renovation of my home in Melrose. It's a great tool because I snap shots and send them to their building science team of the closed cell spray foam before it was buttoned up. The HERS rating is in there with the blower door test results. The SKUs for the HVAC, for the LG heat pumps, the SKUs for the heat pump hot water heater. So all of that stuff is very verifiable by their team, assuming I'm not walking into some other home and saying that this is my data, right? Which would be pretty unethical. I guess that could happen, but assuming that that's not the case and we've got ethical agents doing this, it's very, you can get it done very easily. And what I love about it, right, I can pass Green Door onto the next buyer when we sell, and they can see the spec sheets for all of the HVAC equipment. They can see the closed cell spray foam that becomes invisible once you button up the wall. So I think it's a huge asset even when you go to sell after the fact.
Yeah, that's a great call. We do transfer ownership of the green door account from the seller to the buyer post-close.
Did you have a question? Yeah.
It's kind of a two-part question, one for Jody and one for Greg. But the first part, because you have an intimate knowledge of being able to build the zero homes that most realtors don't. We know, like, obviously the general stuff, we don't know the nuts and bolts of the cost and be able to push back on, like, the whole argument behind building standards. So in the process of the neighborhood that you've been working with, have you been tracking, like, okay, how much would this cost if I just built this like a normal home than the current standards, and like, is it a massive difference? And have you run into like issues with like getting people to do certain jobs because you're like, I want to this standard as opposed to what you're used to? And then Craig, to your point, in your state, I know they have much higher standards and everything if it follow. Did you notice a difference in the timeline for completing those houses as far as like meeting it? Were you running into a lot of situations where it was like hey, we're ready, oh crap, we didn't pass inspection, we have to start back to this level, and taking significantly longer to close those deals?
So you've asked a very good question. It's a hard question for me to answer sitting next to Randy. We're still waiting on Randy to come into Array. So I can tell you in Array, and everything that I have been doing is to try to hold prices down. Because I personally don't want high performance homes to be perceived as elitist, or that it takes, it has to be $1 million house to be able to buy it. But it's still, new construction today is just flat out expensive, okay? And I'm actually really proud of the pricing in Array, and even a resale property is crazy expensive, so it always depends, right? We like to talk out of both sides of our mouth as realtors. Everything always depends. It's my favorite phrase. It depends. Depends on the size of the house, and it depends on selections, right? But in terms of what we're doing in Array, we're, less expensive than if you go down the street and buy a resale property for the most part. If you're, about 2,500 square feet or above, as you go smaller, the price per square foot is gonna go up. All in, we're like $310 to $320 a square foot. But that's all in Array for everything minus the lot. That's grading, well and septic, the house and the solar. Okay? And you go right to, anywhere. It's amazing to me what prices are doing. So I feel really good that we're not outrageous.
That's great, great answer. The question for me was timeline. Yeah, so not really. No, I mean, I think the toughest. I'd love to hear from you, Randy, on this too. The toughest thing that we saw in this evolution of the green building marketplace in the greater Boston area was early on, the builders and architects were getting it. Training the subs to be on board took some time, and when they screwed up, putting the Henry Blue skin on and having to pull it back off because they messed it up, that was when prices came up and timeline changed. But now we've got the subs that really know what they're doing as well, and it's moving just as quickly or as slowly as it normally did, But I don't know, you want to talk about that a little?
I'm just gonna say the first house in Array that will be done in November is coming in ahead of schedule.
Go ahead.
I really like this question, and and I've tried to answer it 1,000,000 times, but it's hard to answer when you don't have control. So a production house or even a semi-custom house is literally a different animal than a one-off architect design custom house. It takes more time, it takes more emotional energy, and it takes a lot more money to build a custom house where the client is making every selections decision. And I've been doing this for a lot of years now, and I can't figure out a way to separate the costs that are associated with making a better house, better bones, a healthier environment, and a more efficient shell from all the other costs that are associated with doing a custom house. So I think that the best people to ask this question of are Well, Habitat is one example, but another one would be to go to a production builder, and there's a couple around that build NGBS certified houses. Homes by Dickerson is one of them, where they are production builders or semi-custom builders, and they have more of a control level about, okay, we throw this switch, what happens? So anyway, great question, but and it's the same thing with schedule. Custom houses take a lot longer. They're not on a schedule where they're getting pumped out every 93 days. Indeed, just the opposite.
And so much from a price per square foot comes down to finishes too. I mean,
Absolutely.
you know, the wide range there can really make a huge difference in the final number.
But I
Good
think-
question. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So question for Heather, when you mentioned about the Pearl certification, what is the cost, approximate cost of it? And I also see there are different types, like silver, gold, platinum, what does that mean?
Right, so the silver, gold, platinum signifies like the level of energy efficiency of the home, with platinum being the highest. So to get to gold or platinum, there has to be a blower door test done, or a recent blower door test done. So that means we have to send someone out to the house. We can't do the virtual option for if you're trying to get to gold or platinum on a listing. The silver is that baseline level of efficiency that we talked about with HVAC and insulation, and the very minimum to hit that standard for certification. So in terms of the way that we set up our ordering system for this, you can do a virtual certification to get the silver. If you have blower door test results from the previous, I think it's 5 years is what we're asking for, we could do a virtual certification, and in the virtual certification, the agent is providing the information. If we do an in-person,
Does that mean gold?
so the gold, silver, platinum is a result of the data intake and the scoring, right? So the ordering system itself, the virtual versus in-person just means is the agent providing the information, or are we sending someone to the home? And we know that the economics of the way that you spend to do marketing on your listings can sometimes play into, so we wanted to make sure that we had an option that came in at a price point that was more accessible for not our top-end luxury pricing of homes, right? So $99 for a virtual certification, and as I said before, if we can't get the home to silver, we're not going to charge for that. So that's $99 for a virtual silver certification, or gold or platinum if we have enough points or a blower door test to get to there. And if we're sending somebody out to the house, I would have to look at the website to get the most updated pricing, but I think we're somewhere around $250 to $325, depending if we're doing it without a blower door test or with a blower door test. So
Maybe just a general question, and I have no answer it, but if the building is green and we have used maybe solar panels or energy efficient equipments, after 10 years or later in the years, will the value of those things also depreciate, or the result of those output keeps on increasing?
Yeah, that's a great question. Do you want to answer that one?
you talked 2 hours on
Yeah.
solar this morning, so I would defer to your.
Yeah, so I would say it's, like solar PV, right, which we talked about all day. We can factor in through the net present value calculations, what in the income approach calculations, what the remaining life of the system is, right? When PV Value Tool releases their new data on EI Value Tool, you can go back in with other high performance home features like heat pumps that are going to be added and get that in for a yearly price. So there is a depreciation that happens over time, but there's still contributory value there. But yeah, absolutely, it will depreciate.
The output also decreases with that.
What's that?
The output also decreases. Like if they were saving so much energy in the beginning of the years,
Yeah.
they will save less.
Yeah, so for like if you saw my rehearse for $3,711 of annual savings for the home that we rebuilt in Melrose, right? That, unless I make significant changes, let's say I change from the decent double pane windows that I put in, and for some reason, 15 years later, I decide to replace them with some crappy single pane, which I'm not gonna do, that would impact the certification. I would want to recertify it, right? somebody mentioned, I think it was Meg, that certification years matter too. And appraisers know this as well. So READ V401 is like a step above the previous certification levels. Qualified appraisers can take that into account, they know what they're talking about.
But I think, are you asking the question, is the output of the panels decreasing over time? That's the question.
Yes. Oh, okay, sorry, yes they do. I mean, half of 1% per year for the standard panels. SunPower considered the best on the market, 0.25% per year. But that's all factored into that PV value. That's the degradation factor.
I have 3 PV arrays, 2 are in commercial buildings and 1 is at my farm. And they are 18, 12, and 6 years old respectively. The oldest system just checked recently, and it's still performing at 85% of what it was the day we put it in. And I might add, all these systems are paid for, fully depreciated, and now they just sit there and spend money on them. Great investments.
One last question, we're at 2:30.
Oh, sorry, could you speak to greenwashing and language that we might see in marketing materials that really is meaningless?
Yeah, I mean, well, greenwashing is really, overstating the sustainability qualities of X, right? So, that could be done using a variety of different language, so, I think Craig had some really good, excerpts that he's seen in listings from his marketplace of agents kind of overstating claims on properties because they have solar panels. People can certainly do the same about a building's certification information. Overstate its representation in the marketplace and how it functions and performs, but it's really trying to get the good and accurate information out in the marketplace is really help combat that greenwashing, and people learning about what all of this means and how to use it in your business is also going to significantly help with that.
I'll give you a good example of that that's like really tangible. So I have on my MLS, I have every new property in Massachusetts on a daily basis that's green certified, right? So I get a bunch of listings and I pop up, take a look at them. And this was, I don't know, probably a year ago, I looked on and there was one National Green Building Standard certified. National Green Building Standard certification is huge up here. That's what Randy does. It's not that big a deal in Massachusetts. We're more lead and passive house. So I was like, oh, cool. National Green Building Standard certified. So I opened up the link and it said PERS score of 72. Well, the minimum PERS score was 55 in that community. So there was something awash. And I know the guy that does the National Green Building Standard certification in the Northeast, so I sent an email to him and I said, hey, I'm just curious, has this gone through your system? He looked it up and he said no. So there's an agent hitting a green data field, probably because they don't know what they mean to begin with, but a great example of greenwashing, right? Yeah. We found when we put PERS score in MLS PIN in 2015, a lot of agents were putting in 0 because they didn't know what it means and that's a default, right? Well, I'm surprised somebody didn't get sued, for that, because that's the buyer, if they do a Google search on what our PERS score of 0 is, gets all excited because, they're not gonna have, anything for utility bills, and all of a sudden the oil truck shows up December 1st and filling up the tank for 250 gallons and owe us $800, that kind of stuff is out there, but it's mainly because of agent incompetence, I find. And what is really important is the fact that we have these third-party certifying bodies there. So if you're worried about that, it's a third party saying this, that, or the other thing. That's a real powerful tool to take litigation from our backs in this work.
Well, and having open data to be able to look something up to verify and validate it. So
Just want to give a big round of applause for all of these. And a bigger round of applause for all of you that have been here since 9 o'clock this morning. An even bigger round of applause for Heather and Holly up and back, and Raleigh Regional Association of Realtors for saying yes to this, and a huge applause for you guys who never said no to this. You know, you never Great day, thank you guys, thank you.